down to, I think he was talking about sort of 22,000 immigrant workers a year. He was saying that the target was 24. And of course, the mainstream media went sort of ballistic about it and said, you know, we need an extra 24. He was really saying we don't need to increase it by 2,000 to sort of maintain the working population, because we've got an ageing population at the moment. From the stance of jobs, I'd say that like one of the main points is that from a young age, a lot of Scottish kids are told if you're going to be successful in anything, you're going to get that dream job in London. And so a lot of them, you know, work and they think that the only way they can get anywhere is if they move to the sort of metropolis, the sort of financial centre that London is, and hope you're doing. But the point is, an independent Scotland mean that young people would be inspired to have a job here, and the jobs would be here for them. I mean, if you think about all the sort of government departments that will be set up after independence, I mean, jobs are going to be there. And from a sort of, like we were talking about skilled workers coming in, if Scotland's producing a surplus of skilled engineers from its universities, then why would we, like, obviously want to have skilled engineers coming in from elsewhere? It'd be a sort of points-based system where maybe 1 year we don't have enough doctors and we can get working visas out. That's just the way I see it. Like, we could balance it a bit more, but obviously what we need to do first is have the powers of immigration. We can't really fuck off.
There's a gentleman at the back there.
Yes. The immigration situation doesn't really worry me too much. More, I would feel, is where are the jobs going to come from? I don't think setting up, obviously we'd have to set up lots of public bodies for a new government, but that's public funded. Where's the income going to come from? Where are the private sector jobs going to come from? What's going to be the stimulus in independent Scotland?
Okay. Annabelle, would you like to?
Well, I would argue that if you don't control the economic levers of power, you're very hamstrung in what you can do to try to grow your economy and create jobs. And if you have the economic levers of power, you've got options available to you, you've got choices that we don't have at the moment as the Scottish Government. At the moment, the Scottish Government today can't even borrow any money. We're very limited in what we can do in the macroeconomic side of things. I think that, first of all, you need those powers in order to have choices that other countries take for granted. And to be competitive within those powers, you have various choices as to what you could do to be more attractive as a business environment, both in terms of internal Indigenous business and attracting investment. Scotland has been very successful in recent years in attracting inward investment, more successful than any other part of the UK except London and the south east of England. That's notwithstanding our fantastic debate we're having on the future of our country. And of course they said, if you have this debate, you won't get anybody coming to invest in your country. Well, that has been proven completely and utterly wrong. So there are opportunities. There's opportunities of independence. If you think Edinburgh becoming a real capital city and lots of embassies being set up and that driving other service industries. I mean, there's lots of opportunities here. It's really a moment in time that we have to grasp the opportunities that are presented. And then it's a matter of choices being made by the people of Scotland about how they want their economic policy to be developed. I think it's incredibly exciting. And I would imagine also, I would say, that actually a lot of expats would want to come back to an independent Scotland because it would be an exciting place to be. There'd be a new dynamism. Business likes that. And there are opportunities there. And with our huge natural resources, looking at renewables offshore in particular, Scotland has locked in again. It's all there to play for, but we're missing a crucial bit, which is the control of the economic levers of power. We have that bit. The sky's the limit, I believe, in this country.
Just a quick point of view. Annabelle said at the start, you take your pen to the ballot box. Don't, because you've got to use a pencil that they give you. If you mark it with a pen, your vote won't count, and we want every vote to count. So,
Hi, my question will be about my pension. I'm a mid-30s now and kind of heeded the advice at the time when I was in my late teens, you know, don't leave it too late to start a pension, have your pension right to the work for when you're young, so that when you're old you can afford to live basically without a job. So I've done that, and the companies I work for are all based in England, headquartered in England, the pension schemes are headquartered in England. What's to stop the English from keeping my money?
What about the pensions? Willing?
I don't think you need to have any fear. The contract regarding your pension is between you and the company, and there are plenty of people employed by companies that are based in Norway or France or Germany or whatever. They're happily receiving their pension from a company that's based in another country as it is. I don't think there'll be any wicked schemes of English companies to do that. It does operate in the other direction as well, I'm sure, for many workers.
Any other questions? The gentleman at the back, very back row.
Can you hear from some women, perhaps? Women? I want to use some of the questions from women. There's ladies who put their hand up, so maybe we can move from there, because they seem to be more undecided.
I'm sorry, I didn't see any lady putting their hand up. Well, let's hear from the gentleman at the back first, and I'll come back to one of the ladies.
Thank you. Just to pick up on a point Annabelle made at the very beginning. You said that the Green Levy currently visited on us all through the extra amounts that are given by the government to fund the current power bills, etc. That if you took that back, it would be paid through direct taxation. So in essence, we would still be paying, we wouldn't be any better off. Secondly, if the corporation tax, which you say that you're going to reduce, if there's a shortfall in the companies coming into Scotland, who would pay for that? Would that be paid through direct taxation as well?
Is that a question for Annabelle? Yes.
Yeah, I'll end in Parliament.
Right, on the Green Levy issues, the point I was making was that the bill you get in your hand will have this sum taken out of it. It will go into general taxation, which is perhaps for some people a fairer way to do it, because it can be a higher marginal rate in terms of their particular financial circumstances. If it's in general taxation, it's borne a bit more fairly, and I think that would be a help to a number of folk who in Scotland still live in fuel poverty, which really, as I said in my opening remarks, is shocking. It's just not acceptable in energy-rich Scotland that anybody is living in fuel poverty. On the issue of corporation tax, certainly the SNP government has proposed that this could be one of the tools that we could use, have at our disposal, either in terms of rates or different allowances, because corporation tax involves not just the actual headline rate. There are many other elements to the corporation tax regime, and I would argue that affords the opportunity to attract business and then to grow the economy and create jobs. So I would say it's job creating, and it's a useful tool, and would be used firstly if it was the political party that got elected to the Scottish Parliament, and secondly it would be used at the time that was appropriate. You wouldn't use economic policy at times that were not appropriate. You would choose, and a small country has a great fleetness of foot, great flexibility to tailor its economic policy to the circumstances that it faces. So I would argue that that is a useful tool to have. It's a tool that other countries take for granted. I know that not all political parties agree with that approach, but at the end of the day, it would allow us to do things that we cannot do at the moment. But the bottom line is, again, and we go back to the same key principle, that whether or not we decided as a country to do this, we only make that decision if we vote yes, because if we don't vote yes, that decision is still made at Westminster by a government that the people of Scotland did not vote for.
Annabelle, before I give it over to a young lady to ask the question, what I would come back with is, yes, I disagree with fuel poverty completely. But the way to actually address that is exactly as you said, take that out, give the benefit to those who can't afford it, but more importantly, increase the personal allowances and taxation to take more people out of taxation and have the people that can't afford it pay that slight bit more.
Okay, and on this particular tax proposal, what I would say to you is that we can talk about this in general terms all we like, but here in Scotland, the only way that we can decide what is best for our system and our people and our interests is to take the power into our own hands, and then we have the option of all the political parties or whatever format they will be in 2016 to come and ask you for your vote on the basis of what they propose for the taxation system, and that is how it should be for any normal country. So I agree that we should have that power to do it, and as to what we do with it, that depends on the circumstances and the political will at the time.
Hi there. I'm an undecided voter, but I agree with the principles of independence, of fairness, equality, and the NHS. But to me, the picture painted by the Yes campaign is one of a utopia, where we get everything that we want and everything goes to plan. Yeah. And I almost think that the Yes campaign would hold more of a sway with the undecided voter and with women, if they were maybe able to cite some of the genuine risks and concerns associated with independence. So are there any of them that you'd be willing to acknowledge just now?
Willie, would you like to answer this?
I think one of the generalities I would like to cite is that certainly at my age, I'm voting for the sake of my children and my grandchildren. I can well imagine there will be some wobbles in the few years immediately after independence. I don't think there'll be much in the way of doubts that we shouldn't have done it. There isn't a single country out of the 140 that have got their independence in the last 100 years, not a single country has wanted to reverse the process. It was particularly evocative to see these almost 70 countries in the Commonwealth turning up, almost every one of which had to spill blood and fight and lose hundreds of lives, some of them hundreds of thousands of lives, in order to get freedom from the British state. Here we are with the privilege of being able to decide it democratically without so much as a bloody nose.
In the last few minutes, I've got time for 2 quick questions. Gentlemen here.
Okay. I will be a yes voter, but the question really is for Dennis. I understood, I think it was James Silvers was on television, was saying that Dennis was the neighbour of Britain, of Scotland having its own currency. And I know currency is a tremendously large question. We don't know all the answers. But his answer tonight, I didn't quite gather that from his reply. Is he in fact, does he think that perhaps, and I know he hasn't got a crystal ball, that Britain and Scotland may well have its own currency in due course?
Did you say you were a yes voter?
I'm a yes voter, yes.
Okay. Is there any other questions from anyone that's undecided at the moment? Related?
I would like to know how in Scotland we afford the pensions and the population, and if we be raising the age in line with the UK.
In Scotland, we afford pensions for an ageing population. Pensions for an ageing population. Right, I'll come to Dennis.
First of all, on the currency, yes, at an earlier stage in the debate, I had expressed the preference for an independent Scottish currency, and I haven't changed my mind on that. But I think that my own personal preference is of huge importance in the great scheme of things. I mean, is Alex Salmond, as First Minister of Scotland, leader of the Scottish Government, who will be leading the negotiations in the immediate aftermath of a yes vote. He has expressed his personal preference and the Scottish Government's preference for a currency union in
in sterling. And as I said earlier, that is his negotiating position, and I think it would be very foolish of him now, having publicly announced his starting the first preference, to then say, but I have a plan B. And by the way, the commission, the independent commission, which looked at the various options, there were 4 options in all, and the independent commission, including at least a couple of Nobel laureates in economics, they came to the conclusion that any one of these options would be viable, but they also recommended to the Scottish Government that sterling within a currency union would be the best option. And as I said previously, I think it would be very foolish. In fact, it is very foolish of the Chancellor and the Shadow Chancellor to virtually tell the people of Scotland that that option is not open to them. I've also heard criticism from Alistair Darling saying that in this currency union, this proposed currency union, there would be no real independence. That everything would be determined, the whole budget would be determined by the Bank of England in effect. That is nonsense. There would certainly be a ceding of certain decision making. For example, interest rates would not be decided by the Scottish Chancellor, or the Scottish Finance Minister, or the Scottish Government. But interest rates at present are not decided by the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Gordon Brown transferred that decision making away back in 1997 when Labour came to power. Gordon Brown, as Chancellor of the Exchequer, transferred that decision-making power to the Monetary Committee of the Bank of England. So we wouldn't be any worse off, as it were, by continuing in such a currency union. And fair enough, there would be certain limits put on what we could do. We couldn't go, if we're in a currency union with another country, we can't go on borrowing as much as we want. There would be limits on our borrowing. But there would still be a huge amount of fiscal freedom to determine our own income tax, our own corporation tax, our own petroleum revenue tax, the VAT, you name it. I mean, a whole host of taxes would still be able to be varied either up or down by the Scottish Treasury. And so, to say that we would have no fiscal freedom at all is a complete nonsense by the no
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yes, on pensions. Okay, a couple of points. At this moment in time, the amount of money that Scotland spends on what's called in budgetary terms social protection, so that's pensions and welfare, is a lower percentage of our GDP than the UK as a whole. So that shows that it's more affordable in Scotland than it is for the UK as a whole. At the moment, we have in the UK amongst the lowest level of pension, state pension, in the whole of Europe. And so I think we should aspire to do something better. Because I don't think it's to be lauded that we're sitting almost at the bottom of the table in that regard, given the contributions that people make over their entire lives, and they want something back at the end of their life, having worked very hard for that. Recently, there's been an expert group looking at welfare issues and indeed pensions to an extent. And certainly at the moment, we already paid for all this in Scotland. Going back to the point that Willie made at the beginning, in the past 33 years, we have paid more tax per head than the rest of the UK. We've put in more than we've got back. We already pay for this. This is already happening. The question is, could we do better? And I think we could do better because, going back to what I said at the beginning, we would be one of the wealthiest countries in the world. So of course we could do better. I want to have ambition. I want us all to do better. So yes, the R report was on your last point was on the age. What we've said, what the Scottish Government said in its white paper, is that the idea that we would look at a 67-year threshold is to us not to be taken on board automatically. What we would do is halt any move to that and rather have a commission look at that in the context of the Scottish population, because sadly in certain parts of Scotland the life expectancy of men and women is much lower than the average, and certainly averages you'll see further south on the British Isles and in other countries. And we can set a limit that bears no relation to life expectancy in Scotland, because that's unfair. Why do we do that? So, there are many issues there, but the bottom line is we're a wealthy country, we can do better, we already pay for this, of course we can afford it. The question is, can we afford to do better? I believe over time that we can. And of course the idea that life expectancy, that can be used as an argument either way, to me is really quite shocking in the 21st century, because the point is to create a better, more prosperous, fairer country where we're not seeing these ridiculously low levels of life expectancy that you see, for example, in some parts of the east end of Glasgow. That's just not on. We've got to do better than this. We can all do so much better. It's just not acceptable. And we need to vote yes. We need to get these powers to frame our own future and the future for your children and your grandchildren. That's what this is. That's what it's all about. So.
Hopefully you've heard something tonight to inspire you to make a decision, and hopefully it'll be a yes. It just remains for me to thank the panel, this excellent panel we have tonight. To give them a bit of applause. Or your questions not been answered, I'm sure Tom Coleman, local councillor, is Tom Wherever is at the back, and Stephen Cavalinsky, I'm sure they'll be happy to speak to you on any issues. And thank you for being a wonderful audience. We've had some really interesting questions tonight. And don't forget to fill in the forms that are